We're going to record this and we're going to look at the key elements of how to write a funding application. You will get a summary of this, but there's a lot of detail in here afterwards. But we have got a special offer today. We do coaching as well, and we actually write bids, as I said earlier, for those of you who've just joined us, so we can help you do that for a price. Or I will give you a lot of tips and information to do it yourself. We've also got a YouTube channel. If you're going to, I'll put the details on a bit later, but if you go on to YouTube and Google C&T Associates, you'll find a version of this workshop there because it's our most popular one. And on YouTube alone, over 800 people have viewed it. And we put it on other platforms like LinkedIn. So if you can all keep on muted and keep silent, please. We will get on with this now. If anybody doesn't want to be identified, then please don't switch on the camera and remove any other features. We do edit this before it goes on to YouTube, so we can take some action if you still have concerns. We've never had an issue, but we do take your online safety and security very seriously here at CNT. Finally, we'll have a special offer for you today on fundraising and bid writing, which will come about halfway through the presentation. But I'm now going to hand over as the first guest for today to Rachel Barham, who's I think you're still the regional recruiter, are you, Rachel? Is that your official title?
It really doesn't matter what you call me. I always just say I'm a self-employed membership advisor.
Okay, over to you.
Brilliant, thanks, Gary. Lovely to meet you all. I think there's some names and faces that I recognise, but for everybody else, as Gary said, my name is Rachel Barham. I'm actually a self-employed membership advisor for the Federation of Small Businesses. So I am a small business and I recruit new members to the organisation. Just in case you haven't heard of us, because as much as I always assume everybody knows who we are, not everybody does. FSB is the Federation of Small Businesses, which is a not-for-profit campaigning group. So we lobby government on behalf of all small businesses. The way that we do that is through our membership. So small business owners join FSB to give us a voice and to give you a voice as well. So they let us know all the issues that are actually affecting their business that potentially government can make changes to help and improve. I suppose during the pandemic is probably the most obvious time when a lot of small businesses heard of us, because we were the ones that were pivotal in getting a lot of the support that came out from them. But we support businesses locally, regionally and nationally, because everybody's needs are so different. And I suppose if you are in London and Greater London at the minute, ULEZ is a big one, which is a campaign that we're actually running and trying to get government to support businesses with. To say thank you to businesses that actually become members, we provide them with a package of benefits that's there to support them, because I'm sure all of you, when you first started your businesses, didn't realise how many areas you were suddenly expected to be experts in. And that's where FSB can help you, because it is all about providing you advice, support, resources, preferential rates, and to help you grow your business as well. So all of those times where you struggled and needed legal advice and either didn't seek it or paid a solicitor a fortune to help you, FSB members actually get free business legal advice that they can access 24/7. There's also legal documents as well, because for business owners, they can be very expensive. And because there's always legislation changes, documents always need to be kept updated, we make sure that we've done that for you so that you can access all of these things and know that your business from a legal perspective is secure and you are protected, but without actually spending out a fortune to do it. There's also support around insurances, banking, health and safety, HR, debt recovery, and lots more. But I'm guessing with the sort of bid writing side of things that people are looking at today, a lot of the time when you're writing bids, it is actually the document side of things that you're going to be more interested in. So there are lots and lots of policies, templates, guides and fact sheets on our portal that as a member you would be able to access free of charge. And if they're not there, then you can actually speak to the legal helpline, because it may be that they actually hold one but haven't uploaded it to the portal because most people wouldn't need it. Or it might be something very specific that you need written for your business. They can also help you with that as well. Anything that you do actually require them to do work for you, they do charge, but they do it at preferential rates. There's no obligation to use us for that if you prefer to use somebody else. But more often than not, we would actually be the cheapest because we've managed to negotiate the cost down. Depending what your businesses do, it may be that you're interested in networking. We hold absolutely loads of networking events across the UK. So if your businesses can work with anybody from anywhere, you can actually book yourself onto any of them. If you need specific locations, then you can search via the website for a certain region. Face-to-face ones, there's sometimes a charge because there may be food or a venue may be charging us. But as a member, you would get a cheaper ticket price than a non-member. All of the online events are free, so you can book yourself on and attend as many or as few of those as you would like. We can also help you in upskilling for your business. So there is lots of different masterclasses and webinars that we've recorded that are actually already on our website. But we're always holding new ones and sometimes industry specific ones. And there's actually a new FSB benefit around e-learning and certified courses that FSB members can get a big discount on the provider, where you can actually have access to nearly 700 certified courses online that can either help you upskill yourself, help you upskill your teams, meet your mandatory training requirements, and even help you grow your business and save your business money, just depending obviously what your need is. And there's hobby and lifestyle ones on there as well, so it might just be that you want to do something different. If you're struggling around sort of tax, VAT, accountancy software, again, it's another area that we can help you out. So the list goes on. What I won't do is take up too much time and tell you everything, because what's right for one of you won't be right for somebody else. I've put my details in the chat. I will put it in again because I know some people have joined since I started talking. So I will put it in again because they won't be able to see it. But please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. I am on Facebook, but the lights have gone off in this room. But you'd need to look for the Rachel Barham FSB for that one. But my numbers and email are there as well. Please feel free to book a time. We can have a chat. I can find out more about what your business does, tell you more about how FSB specifically can help your business. And if you do want to join, then obviously that's where I come in. I can get you joined up with the organisation as well. So much more support there, but I'll obviously stop there and so that you've got time to listen to Gary's presentation. Are there any questions? Because obviously I've thrown through that very quickly.
Yeah, if anybody's got any questions for Rachel, or you can either put them in the chat or raise your hand on the screen. Have you put your details in, Rachel?
I'll put them in. I'm going to put them in again because I know quite a few people joined after I started talking, so they won't actually be able to see it. Yeah,
Karen Enfone. Karen, what's your question?
Hi, Rachel. Hi, Gary.
Hi.
My question is, if you live abroad, but you've got a business registered in the UK, can we register with your company as well?
Yes and no. I'll explain that. Because we only deal with UK-based businesses, quite often the firewalls will actually prevent you from joining and accessing the website. So I know I'm working with someone actually based out in Korea at the minute, but they're coming back to the UK and they have a UK element of their business. So the way that we're having to work it is they will have to identify a base in the UK, because we'll need a UK number and a UK address. We can set it up, and then whenever they need things, then I will actually look on the portal for them or be able to send them information, rather than having the actual, I suppose, direct access to the portal. But yes, otherwise you would be able to use all of the helplines and phone numbers. It would just obviously mean you contacting them. So it's not as easy if you're not based in the UK, and it will come down to the firewall. So for some reason, some people can access it, some people can't. But it doesn't make it as smooth a process, but at least you've got the protections and the access to stuff if you do need it.
But you can use a VPN for that. But my question was the legal side of being resident somewhere.
It's weird, because I know that, yeah, the gentleman I was talking to, he found us by having his VPN on and was able to get onto the website. But then the next time he went to try and do it and to sign up via the link I'd sent him, suddenly it wouldn't work, and then he couldn't access the website either. So, yeah, like I said, it seems to vary where you're based. So it may be that you'll be absolutely fine and you can access everything through your VPN, but then there might be others that can't.
Yeah. Can I suggest you continue this conversation offline, because we need to get on with things now. But
obviously run through it.
Yeah, I'm sure Rachel will talk to you about that, because the connection is not great, because she's in a room in the library in Woolwich at this moment in time, because it was cutting out a bit. Rachel, I don't know whether you picked that up. Okay, well, thank you to Rachel, and all her contact details are in the chat, and she will be back on again at future presentations, hopefully. But you can catch up with her, or if you contact us, my details are all in the chat as well. I will pass any queries on to Rachel. For those of you who've just joined us, my name is Gary Parker. I'm the Managing Director of C&T Associates. I'm now going to do a presentation which will last about 35 minutes. It'll be an overview on all the key issues on bid writing. My company, C&T Associates, there's a lot of work around fundraising. We've been doing it for 20 years. And we write a lot of bids, so I'm going to go through the key elements, but this is an overview because obviously in half an hour or so we can't go through every issue, but we will pick up a lot of them. I hope you will find this of interest. So I'm just going to share the screen now. Here we go. Okay. This is a bit more about me. We're based in Southeast London. I work with a number of colleagues, and we work for a wide range of organisations, ranging from individuals and small community groups right up to much larger organisations. We're going to do 2 workshops, one live and one online for the British Library. Myself and my colleague Sybil are going to do one on fundraising and e-commerce and another on Shopify. That they're both in April. More details about those soon. Here is a lot of our social media links. They're all in the chat. We've got a YouTube channel which has got 30 videos on it on various aspects of fundraising and business support. Please, if you go on it, please like and subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel. We've not had it for too long. We've got about 100 subscribers at the moment, but I'm sure we can pick up a lot more. So please help us if you can. What are we going to do today? We're going to cover a number of elements about bid writing. When you boil it down, there are 2 main elements. The first is finding the right funding. So, you've got to find some funders to apply to before you can even write a bid. If you can't find any, then you're going to get into difficulties. And then the second element is submitting a quality application. What are the main elements or strands of that to enable you to do so? And then we're going to look at some of the other key elements of this around equalities, social impact, and a number of other related issues. And then we're going to have a kind of mini bid writing workshop. We're going to take you through a few key elements and an easy system on how to write a bid if you've never done it before. Because bid writing is not rocket science. I'm sure all of you could do it. The issue is really, have you got the time and inclination? Obviously, we are specialists in this area, but we can teach people to do it, or we write bids for you as well. But if you apply your skills, then there's no reason why you can't do it in your own right. So we'll start with my 5 top bid writing tips. These are: decide the direction of your project or organization and look for funding to support it, not vice versa. Don't just chase money. Decide where you want to be. I mean, this is a basic element of business planning. You set the direction, the vision and mission of your organization, and then you find the funding to support that. That applies to any organization, whether it's profit making or non-profit making organization. And then you research the funders, and I'm going to give you some sources to look for these shortly. Develop a project plan or outline, and then you develop a model or outline application and build on it. And be persistent. Bid writing takes time, so don't be a quitter. And you'll have to be prepared to, certainly in the early years, to fail quite a lot, because it's a very competitive business. But the more applications you submit, the more chance you've got. So we're going to start with the types of funding that are out there. You've got grant making trusts and foundations, charities that will give out money to other organizations and sometimes individuals, although the majority will usually give money to organizations and projects rather than individuals. But there are some out there that will give money to individuals, and it depends where you are. For example, if you're in creative arts, you're an artist, the Arts Council, one of the biggest funders, funds individual artists. And if you're a sole trader and you want to submit a digital funding bid, then Innovate UK will consider funding that as a sole trader. But they are the exceptions rather than the rule. The second type is statutory funding, local and central government. There's still some European funding about, believe it or not. This year and next year are the residual years. There won't be any after 2024, but there's still some around. Then there is community fundraising from smaller local organisations and trusts. There's lottery funding. The big lottery has a whole number of strands. Then there's funding from the private sector. Large companies, many large companies have their own individual charities and trusts. Many of the big banks, for example, Lloyds TSB has had a long-standing charitable trust for many years, but many of the others do it as well, like Barclays and many other companies like Virgin and others have their own charitable trusts. So that's been a growth area in recent years. Finally, this is a much more mixed group of what I call social investment. These are organisations that if you get a grant, they want some kind of social return. And sometimes they loan money, and they may want a financial return, but they also want a social return as well. So there's different types of social investment, and I'll show you a few. And then I would include crowdfunding in that as well. That's a form of social investment, although very different than some of the more longer standing projects and programs that do social investment. So those are 6 types of funding, which covers most of them out there. and you need to research these. So what do you know about these? A grant is a non-returnable funding package in exchange for a measurable impact. So if, for example, you're bidding to the lottery, you have to put forward an application that will achieve certain things. I worked with an organization recently who put forward a bid to help women over 50 with health issues, and we had to work with a certain number of people and achieve certain outcomes. And in exchange for that, you get a grant. It could be a social impact like the ones I just mentioned, or it could be to support a community, or it could be empirical. It could be research completed, jobs created or safeguarded, or it could be a new innovation like a new software program or a new digital innovation. So that's a grant. It's non-returnable funding package in exchange for a measurable impact. But it does work both ways, because if you don't achieve that impact, in some cases the funder might ask for the grant back. So it's not just a sum of money that you can do what you like with it. It has to be managed within certain terms, and the bigger funders will want you to sign a contract to that end. The second type of funding is obviously a loan, which is a sum which is easy to understand, a sum of money repayable at a set rate of interest, whatever that interest rate is, although they have been going up recently. And you have to make an application for it, and that applies obviously to private businesses, but also to non-profits as well. There are some non-profit funders who will loan organizations money, often on an unsecured basis. So you don't have to give any kind of security. Often with businesses, if you've got any assets like houses or insurance policies or other assets, some banks ask you to use those as collateral. But most social lenders do it on an unsecured basis, i.e. they lend you the money at risk, but they obviously want it back, and you have to pay interest on it. Finally, there's crowdfunding, which is a donation or investment. Again, I'm going to touch on that very, very briefly later. I'll give you crowdfunding in 2 minutes, because we could spend the whole hour going through that. But those are the main types of funding: grant, loan, and crowdfunding. There are some others, but that's for another day. Grant-making trusts, many have been around in the UK. In fact, we invented charities essentially in the UK. Some have been around for 1,000 years, or almost 1,000 years, some of them, because the original ones were the kind of help for heroes type charitable trusts, because the aristocracy needed to support the families of the soldiers, etc. And often it was done on a charitable basis, and then it developed from there. So there's a significant number of trusts in the UK, particularly in London, because of the City of London. There's a lot of livery companies and others who have their own charitable trusts. The charitable activity must be within the criteria in their trust deed. So, for example, if they're funding projects for young people, they can't fund projects for older people as well, unless younger people are significantly involved in it, and it's an intergenerational project. And many others have a similar remit, that they focus on one thing, and they can't, they're not allowed to move from that. And these can vary from small grants, £500, £1,000, right up to £500,000 plus. An assessment time, because people are always asking me about this, can take between 3 months. The quickest ones are like the lottery, Sometimes they do it within a month to 2 months, but generally 3 months to a year. The reason often takes longer is particularly with charities. They have to refer any decisions that the staff have made back to a board who have to endorse or rubber stamp the applications. And if they only meet quarterly or every 6 months or every year, like some of them do, you have to wait. That's just the nature of the game, because as I said earlier, a lot of these have been around for a long time. So you've got to build in a really long timeline for grant funding, particularly if you get after larger amounts of money, because you're not guaranteed to get a quick response. You might get a quick response, but it's not guaranteed. They like projects which makes money go further by levering in other funds. So if you've got match funding from some other source, you've got £5,000 from one source and you're looking for another £5,000 for a £10,000 project, then there's quite a few charitable trusts out there who can support that. Indeed, they encourage that, but it's not mandatory. There's still a lot out there that you don't have to have any match funding for. There are some larger trusts out there that may be prepared to take risks and support hard to fund projects. These are projects that may not be popular with other sections of the community, but they are prepared to take risks. Here's a couple of examples here, a couple of sites, myfundingcentral.co.uk, which has a paywall on it, but it's a kind of self-identified paywall, so they'll take your word. If you're a smaller organization, you may well get it for free, but certainly if you're a bigger organization, you have to pay. And I will draw attention to this as we go along, but most of the ones I'm going to mention are free. Here's another one called the Global Fund for Women, which is an American-based charity which supports women-led projects and businesses, and works all over the world, because I know there are some people on this call today who are interested in work in other parts of the world, and that's one of them. They do change quite a lot, but that's been around for a long time, Global Fund for Women, and they do work globally. You need to check the website for details. The biggest charitable funder, that's an interesting one, which I'll come back to in a minute, but people are always surprised. The amount of money given out by charitable trusts in the UK is estimated to be between £4 and £5 billion a year. Yeah, billion, £4 to £5 billion a year, and that won't change for technical reasons, which I won't go into now. The biggest funder is the Wellcome Foundation in the UK, which is a charitable trust formed by the drug company Wellcome, and they give out approximately £700 million a year. Yeah, that's right, £700 million. So that's a big funder. But there are many others that give smaller amounts of money. You've probably never heard of a lot of them. There's a lot of them out there if you know where to look. The next is statutory funding. That's funding from your local authority, the government. If you're in London, your regional governments, that's the Mayor of London. The Mayor of London's got a number of grant programs which are live right at the moment, and there are other regional funders excuse me, as well. Grants are given to further the statutory funders' objectives. So if it's to improve well-being in London, for example, they will expect you to come up with a project to address that. You can't put forward something else that doesn't meet the funders' objectives. Otherwise, it's not likely to succeed. They have large, often, not always, but larger and longer grants than trusts, and are more likely to fund core costs, i.e. your running costs. But they are more bureaucratic and inflexible, and the application process may be drawn out sometimes. In fact, with some of them, you might even have to do 2 rounds. We'll come back to that. And there will be guidelines to support the applicants. So what you have to do is you know, read the guidelines, because for a start, it will show you if you're eligible or not. The last thing you want to do is to write a bid and then read the guidelines in retrospect or try and clarify a point, and then you don't match the criteria. So always read the guidelines. They usually have a summary, but if they don't, make sure you read the guidelines to make sure you're eligible and your project will fit. There are many sources of information about that. Your local council and clinical commissioning group, or they're now called integrated care services, your health hub. Here are some other links. I've already mentioned myfundingcentral.co.uk. Grants Online is another good one. That's got a paywall as well, but there is a free section to it that you can look at, or go on the government's website, gov.uk, and then /funding, business funding, whatever you're looking for. There's some very good links on the government sites, and well worth looking at. Lottery funding next. Here's another source of funding. The lottery is distributed by a number of organisations. The National Lottery Community Fund is the biggest one, and that hosts awards for all, which is the smallest strand, which is up to about £10,000. And then they, for arts, heritage and sports projects, they give a certain amount of lottery money to the Arts Council, obviously for arts and culture, to the Heritage Lottery Fund for heritage projects and heritage culture, because people often forget the Heritage Lottery Fund is often about old buildings, but it's also about heritage culture now. So I would advise those of you who are interested in that to look at that particular website, because people often miss it. And then obviously with sport, you need to look at Sport England, and there's lots of other funders on the Arts Council and Sport England's programme as well. They have some very interesting programmes. And that's the lottery funds. They also have a program called Richer Communities, which is the biggest one, which is up to £500,000. That's a 2-stage project. So companies and business funding is not particularly useful if you're a small voluntary group. So my advice for that is talk to your local council for voluntary service about whatever contacts they've got with businesses, or join your local chamber of commerce. That's probably the easiest way to get to meet businesses, because if you're new to trying to work with businesses, particularly in the non-profit sector, it can take time. So, you know, join a reputable business organization, or we ourselves have some networking events if you want to look out for those. We only had one last year because we were too busy, but we're certainly going to have 1 or 2 this year in different places. More on that soon. And there's a number of sources of information for companies. Probably one of the best ones is the Entrepreneur's Handbook, which is good in its own right for anybody interested in that, but it has 60 pages of grant funding on it. That's the Entrepreneur Handbook .co.uk. And then there's a number of other ones. The ones at the bottom is BITC, Business in the Community. That's worth checking out as well. That forges links between businesses and non-profits and charities. And it's been around for many years and was started up by the then Prince Charles, who of course is now the King. The other way that organizations and individuals raise money is through crowdfunding. There are different types of crowdfunding. Basically, you put a project up online and then you invite, you've got to register with a platform, and then you invite people to fund it, and you make a short video to accompany it, and people will pledge money or make donations depending on what platform you use. For the one, if you're interested in this, the one I would advise you to look at is crowdfunder.co.uk for the non-profit and some private sector organizations. That's the biggest one in Britain. If you're interested purely in business funding, there's a number of others. The biggest one in the world, which I haven't got the link on here, is for Cedars, which is an American-based crowdfunding platform, SEDRS, and this one, Crowdcube, which is a British one, which is run by Richard Branson's Virgin Group. There are a number of others as well, depending on what your interests are. If you're interested in creative industries, then Kickstarter is a good one. That's another American one, but they do fund businesses and others as well. So all of those are worth looking at if you do crowdfunding applications. You don't have to pay if you're a non-profit. If you're a profit-making business or an individual, then they will usually charge you between 4 and 9% of what you raise, but you don't have to pay any money up front. But if you're interested in crowdfunding, then talk to me offline, because it's quite a detailed subject, and you need to do your research, as with all of these things. A good place to start, though, is looking at crowdfunder.co.uk. Other sources of information, these are some of the best ones. I'd really recommend the first three, especially. The other two are fine as well. But the business finance support one is very good. It's the government's, and it has funding for all sectors. Business Hub London, which is run by the Mayor of London's family of support. It's run by an organisation called Newable. That has a lot of interesting information and support, business support as well. And finally, those that I mentioned earlier, the British Library, where I was at this time last week. I can't recommend that too highly. It's a very, very good source of information, and if you join and become a member, you can get access to a lot of resources. They've got a dedicated business and intellectual property centre, and they do work with a number of organisations. For example, they've had a mentoring program running for free recently with a big investment bank, Morgan Stanley. So they've got some very interesting links as well. So check out all those links if you're interested in that. I'm not going to go too much into detail here, but just to show you some of the things that are around. Capital funding, that's funding for building and premises, is the most difficult to get, but there are excuse me, some sources of this, National Lottery, and then there's a number of other organisations that will consider making grants for premises. What they aren't keen on doing, though, if you're a charity or you've got premises leased from a charity, that's okay. They're not very keen on funding private landlords who could then end the lease or evict tenants. It's not unknown. So it is quite difficult, but there are some sources for capital funding, but it is a very specialist area, this. If you want any more information on that, then please talk to me offline. This is for revenue funding. That's all your other running costs, staffing and any other running costs, equipment, various resources. There's a lot of these around. ranging from the lottery, which is at the top, awards for all. I've just highlighted some of them. Again, one of the things we do here is we research funders, and we can write you a funding research report, which will match your organisation and its needs, or will tell you, because in some cases I've saved organisations money by saying to them, look, there's no funders out there that match your requirements at the moment, so you need to look at different projects or keep on developing your business or organisation as it is at the moment, and then come back in a month or two's time, because you've got to match your priority to the funder's priority. That's one of the keys of successful bid writing. But there's a whole range of potential funders, which range from awards for all to Innovate UK at the bottom, which funds digital projects and has grants up to the value of £3 million available. So we're now going to move on to the actual bid writing part of the presentation. The gap between success and failure in this area is very, very slight. It's a bit like horse racing. You know, horses are racing to the finishing line. It's often the one that gets the nose ahead that wins. So detail is very important. So you need to get someone to proofread your work. That's what we do here. And what we generally do is I'll be writing for a project or an organization. I'll give it to one of my colleagues who doesn't know anything about it. And if they understand exactly what the application is about, then I've done my job. If they don't understand it, why should anyone else? You know, you have to keep it clear, concise, and simple. And as I say, if they understand it, you're on the right track. So you give it to one of your colleagues or a family member, whoever, to read. And if they understand the main elements of it, you're getting it right. And you also need to remember, whoever you're submitting this to might be reading hundreds of applications. So the more clear and concise it is, the better. If it's too complicated, they may not get much time. Well, we just don't know, because most funders won't tell you what their assessment processes are, for various reasons. Many bids fail for two reasons, and you might be surprised about this. The first one is that they're not submitted on time. Often, you know, people don't read the deadline dates on guidance, or don't read the guidance at all and write a bid, and then it's too late. The other main reason is, with some funders, they want you to sign the funding application, and if you don't sign it, it's invalid. So despite all your hard work, it won't be considered, because what you also have to remember, it's a bit like job interviews. It's not an inclusive process. It's designed to get a large number of applications down to a much more limited number of applications, because even with the lottery, on their rejection letters, they say, one of the things they put on is, we only have a finite amount of money and we've had a lot of applications. So in other words, they can only give so many applications, so much money per head. If you, and they have to have criteria to achieve that. So if you don't get it in on time, or in this case, you don't sign it, because the lottery actually has rolling deadlines, so you're never out of application date. But if you don't sign it, that could be a problem. The other reason for that is often the application is binding, so you need to have signed it, because what you put on that application you have to deliver. Like I said at the beginning, it's a sum of money for a social impact, so your signature is endorsing what you submitted, basically. Before you start, you need to do some preparation. What does your project wish to achieve? And you need to decide on the main elements of your project idea. Who will be the beneficiaries of it? Who will benefit from it? What services will you offer, and what area will you work in geographically, or indeed in terms of a community as well, or sector? You often need to break it down into individual steps required to achieve objectives. And I'm going to show you a simple system soon. So this is an example of a training course. This was from a bid to deliver some IT training courses. And this is what they were going to do. 5 12-week courses, each comprising 1 hour individual and guided learning sessions, 4 1-hour group sessions, 4 1-hour tutorials, and 4 to 6 hours open learning with access to IT facilities. So that details exactly what they were going to deliver in a very concise way. Other things you need to consider are the resources for the project. Because there's nothing worse than submitting a bid for a project and you've not put in enough money for it. We're not covering project budgets today because that is the subject of another webinar, because it's not something you can do in 2 slides. But part of putting a project budget together is marshalling your resources and costing your resources. And these might include things like staffing or freelance workers. You can put freelance workers in bids or consultants in some cases. It's areas like IT, for example. Then there's your premises costs, costs for supporting volunteers, and indeed volunteer time and support for training or travel expenses, whatever. Then in some cases you might need some materials or resources or training resources. And then of course you've got administrative support for managing. If you're working with a group of people, they might need some administrative or management support as part of that. In all bids, you usually have to have some kind of outputs. That's what's delivered, basically. Activities, services, numbers, products, and results. The details here should be purely factual and quantitative and must relate to the objectives of your project. So if it's a training project for young people, you have to detail the outputs. 35 trainees complete a level 1 course, 36 weeks of training undertaken with an average attendance of 18 young people. So there you've got that training course in a nutshell. You know, this doesn't have to be very complex stuff. In fact, the more clear and concise it is, the better it is. So that's the outputs, because people often get confused between outputs and outcomes. The outcomes are what happens as a result of the outputs that you put into a project. So if you're training people, for example, you need to describe the expected changes that will take place for service users. So the people who get trained, the qualitative and anticipated changes. What does that mean? For example, in this case, it could be a training course in literacy skills. So it could be improved skills amongst the target group in the target borough. Or another example, it could be increased English skills in 90% of refugee children completing a training course. So, you know, you can have lots of different outcomes, but you must specify them. Your outcomes should reflect the aims of your project, whatever it is. If it's working with young people, how do young people benefit? You should be able to monitor and measure them in some way. So that's what we call key performance indicators. So, you know, how many people are on your program, What do they get out of it? Can you measure it in some way? You know, do they get trained? Do they get qualification? Is there some other outcome? Is their well-being improved? You need to look at ways to evaluate and measure that. There are a number of ways to do that, which again, I'm not going into in much detail today, but things like case studies or feedback or qualifications. There's lots of different ways you can demonstrate that. One of the other things that you will often be asked to do is to prove the need of a project. This is a big thing now, because they're not going to take your word for it. You know, some charities I've worked with in the past say to me, well, we do all this good work, but nobody seems to fund us. And I say, you need to be able to prove it, because nobody is just going to take your word. Most funders won't do that. You have to provide evidence or prove the need for the project. So where do you get that information regarding your organization? How can you collate it? And what are the sources of information? All very good questions. You can collect it yourself if you've run other programs or projects. You can analyze any data you got from that, subject to the Data Protection Act, because remember, if you carry any data on any individuals or services, then you've got to be registered with the Data Protection Agency and abide by GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. I'm sure many of you know about that. So you can collate it yourself, or if you've worked with other partner organizations and they're able to share data subject to data protection issues that I've just mentioned, then you could potentially utilize that. Your local authority often has information. I was looking at working in another London borough recently, and one of the things we did is we looked at the areas we were working at, and we looked at some of the deprivation indices, you know, on poverty in the area and things like that. We got a lot of it from the local authority website, but there are other sources. If it's health information, you've now got these new integrated care services, stroke health hubs, for example, where we are in South East London. There's one of those, or go onto the NHS website. Another very good source of information is the Government's Office for National Statistics. I'm registered with them. I get an email every day from them on something. They're always collating data. And of course, they collect and collate the census data, which is often a good source of information from people or about certain areas and individuals. I'm just going to mention as a slight respite what our special offer is today. You'll get this in an email later. You get one copy of our fundraising pack, which is here, which we sell separately. You get a copy of this presentation, which is 48 slides, very detailed, and we'll also give you a personal consultation and give you some advice about how to structure and manage your project in whatever areas it is. Normally, if you look on our shop, on the store on our website, cntassociates.com, that's about £250 plus VAT, but till 2:30 tomorrow, we're offering this at 195 plus VAT. So there is quite a bit of support there. And we'll give you some other extras as well if you sign up today. So that's our special offer for today. Going to move on now. Submitting a quality application. Here's a number of key points to remember when submitting a funding application. Do you need to register your interest? For some funders, you may well need to do that. Sometimes you have to complete, if it's a local authority, for example, you may have to complete a PQQ, a pre-qualification questionnaire, and an initial application, which is sometimes called an expression of interest. These are short applications, but again, they might ask you in a PQQ for policy information, which is what Rachel mentioned earlier. So if you haven't got those, that's an area you might want to look at, but it's not liable on every application, but increasingly they are asking for a range of this, particularly if you work with vulnerable groups. Like if you work with children, you've got to have safeguarding policies and a number of other things in place before you can bid for funding. As an example, there are many other examples, and you may have to have insurance cover or health and safety risk assessments. There's a range of things. I mean, again, this is something we can advise on here at CNT. So you need to ensure that you read the guidelines or the prospectus carefully, ensure you have the systems in place, which is what I was just talking about in terms of policy and management, and apply for a budget you can cope with. Because one of the issues for small organizations is that many bigger organizations operate procurement rules. And what that means is basically, there's an example, I came across one recently, they won't give you as a grant or indeed any other type of funding more than 40% of your annual turnover. So if your annual turnover is 100,000, they won't give you a grant of more than 40,000, no matter how good a case you put forward, because that's the regulation that they operate. I've already mentioned this, but you need to have a high level of clarity and explain how the project fits with funders' priority and target groups, answer all parts of each section clearly, and quantify the outputs clearly. So you know what you're providing, how many people you're providing it to, etc., etc. Use bullet points if necessary, and type your application, because they don't take many handwritten applications these days, but you need to make sure it's legible, and you need to watch for that, because some funders say you've got to submit applications in at least font 12. So if you do it in font 11 or below, they might not accept it, because that's another of these knockout factors. Because as I said, this is not an inclusive process. It's designed to exclude organizations. Here's some good practice. Read the whole form before you start. Fill in all the straightforward sections. Ensure all of those involved in the project have had a hand in either writing or reading it, and ensure that managers, if you have got other managers or other people involved, have ownership of the project. Share the first draft with others, and test the objectives by presenting them to colleagues. If you've answered the question fully, stop writing. You are not obliged to fill up each text box, but these days normally you'll have a certain amount of words, 250 or whatever, 300 per section, and if it's an online application, you won't be able to write more than that. So my advice is to do a draft application offline and then edit it, and then paste it into the online application, unless you come up with a better way that suits you. Here's a very simple system that you can implement for yourself to write a model or outline application, which is what we do here at CNT. We start with 10 ideas. So that's equivalent to about 400 words. So that's 20 sentences of about 20 words each on average. And each idea should consist of 2 sentences of 20 words each. So the first is a statement, and I'm going to show you one in a second. So this is something, a proposition you want to put forward, and then the evidence to back up that statement from research, experience, signposting, whatever. So that's sentence 2. And you start with an initial bullet point and develop that into an idea. So just do that. Here's bullet point 1. Provide childcare support alongside a training program. So here's an example. So this was our proposition. We'll provide creche and childcare support for students and their dependents that will run alongside the training course. So that's the statement. And to back that up, because I've had to do this in very general terms, previous research shows that this help needs to be available both before and after training to ensure a student's full commitment. But if you've run training courses or support before and you've done some evaluation or survey of that, you could say 60% of our previous trainees said that it needs to be available, or words to that effect. You've got to get it into 20 words. So that is quite a simple way to do it, because you get 10 sentences covering all the main elements of your bid, and then you get another 10 to back up the evidence, and then you can build up a bid. It's as simple as that, really. There's a number of other things you'll need to consider as well. And these include equalities, social impact, cross-cutting themes, and added value. And then I'm going to show you some common mistakes. So equalities are very important these days. We live in a very diverse community. So you need to think how your project will affect others. You know, here are some examples: young people, minorities, disabled people, or any disadvantaged groups. And there are 7 strands of equality. I've listed them there, including age, disability, race, gender, sexuality, transgender, religion, and belief. And there are also 9 protected characteristics, again, which I've listed there. So you need to consider what the project will do to promote diversity and equal opportunities, what the project will do to ensure equality of opportunity. And that includes equal access to services, which is also very important, because you know, if you've got a training project, for example, you need it will help your bid if you've got, wherever possible, disabled access to the building it's taking place in, or indeed you run it in places where that takes place, so that all the community can access it. On some courses that you may even have translation or some other project. You need to think about access for everybody in the community. And that's very often a funder requirement. It's certainly a large funder requirement. So it's something you need to give careful consideration to. There are many instances of common mistakes in fundraising. I've made plenty of them myself, so this is from experience. I'm going to show you some research. Huge numbers of funding applications are ineligible, mostly due to not reading the guidance properly. So I can't reiterate that enough. Read the guidance. Applications take a lot of time and energy, so don't waste it through carelessness. This was a project, an organisation I was working for a few years ago. And they had a program called Fast Forward Grants. It was in North London. And they received 534 applications for the funding. 203 were ineligible. 137 were due to not providing the correct financial information. And this included incomplete last annual accounts or no accounts at all if they're asking for accounts, no bank account details given, other reasons including organizations not eligible, either the staff or there were issues with the number of staff or the turnover was too high. They asked for too much money or didn't state the project actions, in other words, what it was going to do. So they were excluded because of this. These weren't the only reasons, but these were some of the main reasons. This is from another round of the lottery. This has changed a little bit because with online applications, you can't submit it if you don't put certain things in. But on awards for all, 74% of applications were ineligible on a particular round. The main reasons were bank account details were incorrect, or sometimes you have to have referees or other people who have to countersign the applications. And then there were constitutional issues. If you're a non-profit making company or indeed a charity as well, you have to have either 3 directors or management committee members, even if you're a non-profit making company, because that mirrors chair, secretary and treasurer. And you have to put personal information on this as well, including people's dates of birth. And if you don't put that on, it's not going to be eligible. You probably won't even be able to submit it. So you need to follow the guidance from that. You know, all of these knockout factors aren't rocket science. With some careful preparation, you can circumvent these, and that will improve your chances by about 20% if you can address all the issues that I've just mentioned there, and will help you develop your skills. This is a kind of aid memoir because we're coming towards the end now. 10 tips for successful fundraising. It's essential that the funding criteria is carefully read before deciding whether to apply. Make sure that you think through exactly how the project will be managed and how the work will progress. Make sure you're clear about the funding conditions and that you're able to meet these. So if you have to deliver certain things to get the money, you have to deliver it, and within a certain time frame, because for example, awards for all, you have to deliver within 1 year, and if you don't, that is an issue and you could be faced with repaying some of the funding. Funders are increasingly likely to ask what difference your service will make to people's lives. So that's the social impact. You've got to be able to demonstrate this in some way. Again, it's something we focus on. I haven't got the time to go into it now, but there are ways to do that. For example, one example that you can do is to provide case studies or performance indicator information, number of people on a program or course, and if they got qualifications or other outcomes, what they were and what the success rates were. It's advisable to have a credible exit or succession strategy for the project. So what happens when the funding finishes? This is often an icebreaker with funders, because they want to invest money in projects, but what happens after the period takes place? Then how will it go forward? So you need to think about that. Again, that's an area we can help with, because we've got several strategies that we could suggest you might want to employ. Next one is make sure you answer the question that the funder is actually asking, and answer all the questions clearly, directly and succinctly. So you have to address exactly what they want you to address. If you don't do that, you'll either be marked down or might not get any score on that particular section of the application at all. Make sure you provide any evidence which you can to support your application in terms of statistics. and if you've delivered projects before, what the key outcomes for those projects were. If you're new, you need to focus on the track record of the people running the organization. You know, what your track record has been previously. Have you done anything else that you can cite as an example? You may be an expert in a certain field. Put something about your track record in that. You know, there are ways to do that. Again, that's an area that we can help with. Any data, community consultation, research that you can access, if it's not from you directly, if it's from other organizations, or you can get it from the local authority or other sources. That's very important. Financial information, the budget you provide must be complete and correct, so it has to add up. If you're putting forward a budget, double check it and make sure it's very clearly labeled as to what the main elements are: staffing, resources, marketing, training, whatever's in the bid. You need to cost it individually. And if you have to sign it, and that includes online signatures now, make sure the application is signed by the relevant and appropriate persons, whoever they are. And a final tip, remember, it's not necessarily the good idea or good project which gets funding, it's the good application, because that's all they've got to go off in the end, even if you're known to them. If you submit a quality application, you're much more likely to get funded than if you don't. And if you're not known to the funder, it's going to make it very difficult if you don't submit a good application. In fact, if you haven't got the time to do it, then stop, wait for another one, or submit it to a funder that hasn't got specific deadlines. So this is my advice for taking things forward. Start by working on short applications to build your skills and confidence. If your organization or project doesn't have a track record, it will be difficult at first. But don't be a quitter, keep at it. Try to work in partnership with others wherever possible, because if you're a new organization or even an existing one, if you can demonstrate partnership delivery, that's always good. One good bid could pay off, because you'll have to be prepared to fail quite a lot, particularly in the early stages, but you only need to submit 10 applications. You need 1 or 2 to succeed, and then you're getting some funding. So you just have to keep at it, basically. Okay, I've already shown you our funding guide. This is one of the products that we sell. If you go onto our website, on the homepage, there is a store. You can buy that offers if you wish, or you'll just have got an offer from us right now, and that's my contact details. Thank you for staying with me through that, because it's quite a lot of information, and I will take some questions now. I'm just going to look in the chat. Jamie, yes, yeah, we do know each other. I suggest you contact me offline, Jamie, to talk about your issue. It's maybe something I can help you with. There are quite a lot of funders out there for the arts beyond the Arts Council. Personally, I'm not a great fan of it, but if you've got money out of them, then that's good news. Okay, I'm just looking in the chat. All my details are in the chat. So if you want any further information, please get in touch with me. If you want to know more about our services, then look at the website. We've got some costed packages there, and we can help you with coaching as well. You'll have just had an offer, so please get in touch if you want any clarification on any of those. Anyone else wish to make any points? Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, my question, if you do forget to sign the application, do they send it back to you and tell you, or do they just...
No. Often it will just it will just be set aside, and that's it. It won't go through. It's a bit like sending in a job application that they ask you to sign and you don't sign it. They're not going to tell you. They're just going to disqualify you from the process. You know, it's not. It depends who you're applying to, and most applications now are going online, so it's not the issue that it was. But some of them still want, for larger amounts of money, that is an issue. For smaller amounts, generally, it's not.
Thank you.
So don't let that put you off. Just make sure that you read the guidance. Okay. I can't see anybody else there. Thank you for joining us today. We will be doing some more workshops in due course on fundraising. So thank you for joining us today. Somebody's asking me, hi Gary, I have a renewable energy project, but I'm not a European citizen. Well, if you set up a company in the UK, you don't have to be a European citizen. You can be a global citizen. So that might help you get around that. If you're not, again, I think you need to talk to me offline about that. There is, incidentally, on our YouTube channel, a presentation on funding for environmental projects and sustainable businesses. So you might want to have a look at that. But I'll be happy to talk to you about that if you get in touch with me. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye.